On today's episode of Locked On Wild, 3 rookies who could have as big of an impact as Marco Rossi and Brock Faber did in 2024-2025.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We thank you, as always, for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite audio platforms as well, whether you listen on your phone, over your laptop, in the car, on the go, wherever you take in Locked On Wild. We appreciate having you along for the ride. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we'll talk about 3 names that could have huge impacts as rookies in 2024-2025. Good primer for a conversation we'll be having later in the week with Denny talking about the top 6 and how that could play out for the Minnesota Wild. So getting you primed up there. My name is Seth Topal, your daily Minnesota Wild insider. As mentioned, our due to Father's Day weekend, I think our Sunday show is going to be a Monday show for this week. Going to get that finalized here today. We'll let you know for sure on tomorrow's show, but I think that's the plan for right now. Is due to the Father's Day weekend, going to have our standard Sunday show on Monday at noon. So keep an eye out for that. And this piggybacks perfectly into what our Sunday or our Monday topic will be. We're talking about rookies who could have a big impact. And so I want to kind of set the stage for that conversation without overlapping it too much. But first, yesterday's question of the day was asking listeners what they would do to fix the face-off dilemma that the Minnesota Wild have had for years. And I think I'm going to go with our winner as Brian's comment for yesterday. So here's what Brian had to say about fixing the face-off conundrum. All I can remember is Dallas scoring twice on the power play within seconds in Game 1. Their ability to win draws really set the tone for the entire series, even 5-on-5. Starting a power play behind your own net and trying to set it up can drain a minute or more of time, plus the energy PP1 takes to get it set up. In reverse, getting the puck to the point straight back can give you a full 2 minutes of pressure, which is huge even if you don't score. Every forward loves playing in the O zone versus scrambling to play in the D zone. When you play the Vegas, Dallas, Jets, Oilers, this is extremely important. As Trav said, it's chasing versus control and makes it for a long night versus a fun night. I will say the goaltender is your number one penalty killer still. We didn't have that consistently last year either. All very great points as something that, it's not the end-all be-all. Face-offs aren't, but they can certainly factor in to a game here and there. So that's something that we'll just have to continue to try to see if it becomes an area for improvement. But great comments yesterday on our listener question. Now, first name I want to start with who could have a potentially big impact on 2024-2025 is Riley Heidt, because it's now not just a little whisper. There are legitimate rumblings that Riley Heidt could make the team out of training camp. In addition to, he can get up to 9 games at the NHL level without burning a year of his entry-level contract. And then under that stipulation, he would just head directly back to Prince George. But you look at the numbers that he's put up the last 2 seasons, especially. He had 117 points this past year, 66 games, 37 goals, 80 assists in 66 games. He also, in 15 playoff games, had 19 points, 13 goals, 16 assists. And it's interesting because, Hockey Wilderness talked about this earlier this week, in that Heidt could be somebody that sticks as a center long term for the Minnesota Wild. But I just think, and again, I don't want to get too far into it because this is going to be our topic for Denny's next appearance, is talking about the top 6 and the makeup of the top 6. But we all saw it play out in vivid detail throughout the course of the season. Is there just are opportunities within that framework that are being wasted. And so if Riley Heidt can come in and impress, let's think about this. There's really nobody that is, other than all the veteran names that we know, there's really nobody that's going to be pushing him for a spot. If his skill set translates immediately to the NHL level, sky's the limit. And that's where you go from just a 9-game cup of tea to a guy who you say, hey, this guy is too good to not be here and too good to not be in a spot, especially in a high impact spot. And you need it up and down the lineup. You need players that are capable of providing offense, regardless of if you're on the top line or if you're on the fourth line. You just need to have guys that can contribute all up and down the lineup. And we saw things play out last year. There are a lot of guys that do not necessarily contribute directly to the offensive side. So looking at Heidt's profile, yes, he is 5'11", but Elite Prospects kind of paints the picture here. Heidt has the handling, shooting, and vision to inflict major damage on opponents. He takes the extra stride to play the body, never passes up an opportunity to sneak in a shot behind the play, and is an enthusiastic combatant in scrums. On retrievals, Heidt establishes inside positioning early, drives through opponents' hands, and separates them from the puck. And the use of contact to create space in the small area game allows him to spin off of defensive pressure and attack the inside. Folks, if he has a shoot-first mentality, or is just a playmaker in general, it's something that is just sorely needed outside of the expected guys, outside of the key, Kaprizov, Eric Sinek, Matt Boldy. Those are the guys that you expect are going to be high impact players on this team. Everybody else kind of variable. Ryan Hartman provided 21 goals last year, and I'll put Marco Rossi in the expected. It's just, with it being his rookie season, we could see a huge step forward if he gets a little help on his line. But your high end, upper echelon guys that you expect to contribute high level offense, it's Kaprizov, it's Boldy, it's Eric Sinek, and there are a handful of guys that can jump up into that category. But then there are guys down at the bottom of the list too that are, grinders. They will be physical. They will try to, slow down the opponent. But I mean, Riley Heidt, I feel like right now could come in and in a full 82 game season do better than 11 goals. Without even taking any other factors into play. I feel like he could step in and in his rookie year, full 82 game season, all the highs and the lows, I think he could do way better than 11 goals. So Riley Heidt, if he does make the team out of camp longer than the 9-game cup of tea, which it's looking more and more likely that's a legit possibility, he could provide something that is just so desperately needed for this team. which is in the way of scoring and playmaking. So that's certainly one name to take a look at. We're going to talk about a couple of others here today. Of course, Liam Ohgren had his 4-game stint at the end of last season. I want to talk about something in the Liam Ohgren department that is going to probably infuriate you. I'm looking at a benchmark for his numbers that if he gets to it, you'll be surprised at just how far up the list he gets from a statistical standpoint. So we'll talk about that as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Policy Genius. Folks, the world of life insurance can be daunting for even those that know what they're looking for. A lot of life is unpredictable, but a good life insurance plan gives your family a financial safety net to protect against some of the unknowns. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius helps you easily compare your options from America's top insurers in just a few clicks. They have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. Get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance policy with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com. Policygenius.com. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure to check out Locked On Sports today, because if you are like me and you enjoy getting your sports takes in throughout the day, but you'd much rather watch a conversation than two people just screaming at each other, Locked On Sports Today can provide that with the first ever 24/7 streaming channel. You can find it on YouTube or on the Amazon Fire TV app. 24/7, all you can get of your favorite sports host, your favorite Locked On shows, and it'll be conversation, no screaming. So that's Locked On Sports Today. You can catch it right after today's episode is done. All right, we're talking about impact rookies for today's show, and this leads us to today's question of the day. It could be these names. It could be Riley Heidt, Liam Ohgren, or Jesper Wallstedt, as we'll talk about to finish the show today. It could be somebody else. Who do you think is going to have the biggest impact as a rookie for the Minnesota Wild in 2024-2025? Leave the name of the player and your reasoning, and whichever comment hits it out of the park gets mentioned on tomorrow's show. So again, today's question of the day: which rookie do you think is going to have the biggest impact for the Minnesota Wild in 2024-2025? Liam Ohgren got his first chance to see how things went at the NHL level for the Minnesota Wild last year. All told, he played in 4 games, had 1 goal, 1 assist, with 8 shots on goal and 14 total shot attempts. And for Ohgren, he is, he's part of this wave of prospects that the Wild expect are going to play major roles with the next couple of seasons as contracts expire, as roster spots need to be filled. The expectation is that some of these guys are going to step in and take those spots. And I think Ohgren provided some real intriguing play in the 4 games that we saw. He's got, he's 6 foot. And so he may be on the small side to some, but he's a player that I think really knows how to use his size, and he's built very, very well. His lower body is incredibly heavy. And that allows him the opportunity to really kind of play a power forward type role, a get to the net, get low type role, which is how he is going to generate a ton of his opportunities. But I wanted to do this exercise here today in talking about Liam Ohgren, and it's going to be one that's going to infuriate you. So, shots on goal for Ohgren in the 4 games. He had 8 shots on goal. So, easy math. That is 2 shots per game. So, if we take that and extrapolate that, 82 times 2, easy math. I love this. 2 shots per game is 164 over an 82 game season. Can you guess where that ranked amongst Minnesota Wild players for the course of the season? Can you guess? I'll give you a hint. It would be top 10. That would put him just behind Marco Rossi for 7th on the team with 164 shots per game. 7th on the team. You had Kirill Kaprizov leading the way with 277. Joel Eriksson leading second with 267. Matt Boldy was third with 227. Then Matt Zuccarello and Ryan Hartman tied with 173. Marco Rossi had 167. What if we up that to 2.5? 2.5 times 82 is 205 shots. 205 shots on goal. That jumps him all the way up to 4th. Folks, it's not a high bar. It's not a high bar. And if Liam Ohgren is a player who has the tendency to shoot more and provide more shots on goal, and I would say 14 shot attempts in 4 games is pretty darn good. That's 3.5 shot attempts per game. And so 3.5 times 82, that's 287 shot attempts, which would, again, that would put him within the top 10 on the team. And so this is why I feel like Liam Ohgren can come in and provide an immediate impact, whether it be playing on the third line, whether it be playing, potentially in a top 6 role. If he simply shoots the puck, if he simply tries to get shots on net, that's going to increase his opportunities to find the back of the net. And okay, so let's do this. Let's say 2.5 shots on goal per game times 82. So 205 shots. If he goes with his shot shooting percentage, which was 12.5, and even if let's just say 10. Let's just say 10%. We'll leave a little bit of wiggle room there. 205 shots and you shoot 10%, that's 20 goals. Right there. And we're not even factoring in, we're just doing like a base level test. 205 shots on goal. If you shoot 10%, that's 20 goals. He would have been the 6th player on the roster to record 20 goals. And nobody else was close. Matt Zuccarello was next closest with 12 goals. So you're starting to see are you starting to see what I'm getting at here? This is how vital these types of players are to this team, because as it currently stands, you have a handful of players that don't really provide on the offensive side. And you need to whittle down that number. And if these young players can step in and simply get shots on net, what if he would average 3 shots per game? 3 shots on goal per game. That's 246. That's 3rd on the team. And you shoot 10% there, that's 25 goals. The proof is in the math, folks. And if Liam Ohgren can provide just somebody that is looking to hit the net on a semi-regular basis, it's like finding an oasis in the desert. You find the water to fill your parched stomach. I don't know. It's like finding water in the desert. This could be Ohgren could be, if he simply does that, if he simply strives for that per game, that's a major piece. That's a huge boost to this team offensively. So if he gets an opportunity, if Ohgren wins a spot, which I don't see any reason he won't, he should. If he wins a spot, he could provide a huge boost to this team in the scoring department. We'll finish by talking about arguably the biggest name that could provide a major impact to this Minnesota Wild roster, and that is the future, the franchise, the goalie, Jesper time. We'll talk about the Vol of St. Paul as we finish today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel, folks. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, the Stanley Cup Final, and more. And you can bet it all on FanDuel. Right now, get this. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on everything from the Finals MVP to who is going to hit one out of the park. If you are in a state where sports betting is legal, take my advice. If you want an easy way to cash that $5 bet, just pick whoever the Chicago White Sox or Colorado Rockies are playing. I have followed baseball a little bit this year, but I know that those two teams are not great. And if they play each other, take the over. That's your $5 bet. Then you can take those $200 in bonus bets, put them on the NBA Finals, Stanley Cup Final, you name it, you got it. All you have to do to make that happen is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. As a reminder, we will be talking with Zach Zeman coming up tomorrow. We're taking a look at what some upcoming contract extensions could look like for the Minnesota Wild. We'll throw some numbers at you. And we will also, as mentioned, our next appearance with Denny will be on likely Monday at noon. We will finalize that for you tomorrow. So keep an ear out as we'll try to get all that firmed up for you coming up soon. Today's listener question, also as mentioned, which rookie do you think is going to have the biggest impact in 2024-2025? It could be Riley Heidt. It could be Liam Ohgren. It could be Jesper Wallstedt. What do we know about where the goalie situation is at? By all accounts, Bill Guerin is looking to move Filip Gustavsson. There have been rumblings that the New Jersey Devils are looking to move on from their 10th overall pick. There are other teams that are in need of goalies too. Los Angeles Kings, Buffalo, Edmonton, you name it. There are a bunch of teams that are in need of a goalie, which would leave the Wild goalie room as Marc-Andre Fleury and Jesper Wallstedt. Marc-Andre Fleury is 39. He is not somebody who is going to give you a full workload at this stage in his career. And so it is, therefore, an opportunity for Jesper to step in and to just take the job and run with it. And the Wild are hoping that he does, because Minnesota Wild's goalie combination last year, not great. In the save percentage department, the Minnesota Wilds collectively as a team had an .897 save percentage, which was 7th worst in the entirety of the NHL. The only teams that were worse, New Jersey, Tampa Bay, Anaheim, San Jose, Philadelphia, and the Ottawa Senators. The Minnesota Wild also in the goals allowed per game department checked in with the 3.17. And it boils down to the consistency too. That's an area where I think Jesper can really help this team immediately. Is look at these numbers month by month. So in the month of October, Filip Gustavsson had a 4.36 goals against average, an 885 save percentage. Marc-Andre Fleury had a 3.25 and an 888 save percentage. If we go to the month of November, Filip Gustavsson had a 2.82 goals against average and an 898 save percentage. Marc-Andre Fleury had a 3.62 and an 864 save percentage. In the month of December, Filip Gustavsson had a 2.26 and a 920 save percentage. So he's starting to kind of build on his performance. Marc-Andre Fleury had a 2.66 and a 919 save percentage. In the month of January, Filip Gustavsson had a 4.42 goals against average and an 876 save percentage. So wheels fall off in the month of January. Marc-Andre Fleury had a 2.52 and a 906 save percentage. And we saw Jesper in one game, 7 goals allowed. We don't need to gloss more into that performance because I think everybody is pretty well consensus that that was not a good position to put a rookie in. Filip Gustavsson in February, 3.45 goals against average, 883 save percentage. Marc-Andre Fleury had a 2.79 and a 908 save percentage. Month of March, Filip Gustavsson had a 1.42 goals against average and a 947 save percentage, and Marc-Andre Fleury had a 2.63 and a save percentage of 90. And then from the month of April to the end of the season, Filip Gustavsson had a 3.38 goals against average and an 890 save percentage. Marc-Andre Fleury had a 4.07 and an 858 save percentage. And then Jesper Wallstedt got a couple of starts. He had a 1.01. I know it was against Chicago and San Jose, but he had a 1.01 goals against average and a 962 save percentage. Folks, the point that I'm getting at here is there was no consistency to the numbers whatsoever. And it seemed like when one goalie had a good month, the other followed. When one fell off, the other fell off. The Wild had no consistency in the net for pretty much the entire season. Yes, there were runs in between by Filip Gustavsson and Marc-Andre Fleury that make the peripheral numbers not as bad. But if you can even, and not every month is going to be great. There are going to be dud starts that kind of inflate the numbers. But if Jesper can come in and provide consistency in his performance, not 5 goals allowed one game and 1 goal allowed the next. If he can provide consistency in his performance, that makes it easier for the Wilds to gauge, what their offense needs to do. It's one thing to need to score 6 goals because your goalie gives up 5, but there were plenty of nights too where the Wilds gave up 2 goals and lost. Consistent performance in the net, and as Brian noted in our comment of the day, on special teams too. Not the same performance for either goalie on special teams this year that we saw last year, not even remotely close. And so if Jesper can help in that area too, then look, there's nobody else. If Filip Gustavsson's moved off the roster, there's nobody else chasing Jesper. Marc-Andre Fleury is going to be here for one more season, and that's it. There's nobody else on the roster or in the minors that is chasing him. It is his job to lose. And so this is a great opportunity for Jesper to just take it and run with it and be that guy so that then you're worrying about filling a backup spot And, we don't have any more of this like coin flip. It's going to be one guy tonight. It's going to be one guy the next. Go be the guy and go take the job. That is what Jesper can provide. And that's why he probably, if I had to put my stake behind a name as for which rookie is going to have the biggest impact next season, I'd probably have to go Jesper, because I think if Gustavsson is traded, that is, I think, the biggest hole that needs to be filled. And Jesper is the one that can just completely do that. He can completely fill that role without having to really, piece things together. And it'll be that he's either up for the challenge and rises to it. There will probably be growing pains throughout the way, but best case scenario is that he takes that spot and he runs with it. Because the other side of this too, I don't think he has a single thing to prove at the Iowa level after what he has done with that team in front of him over the last couple of seasons. I don't think he's got a single thing that he needs to prove at the Iowa level. So this is his chance, and that's why I think he probably has the biggest impact of any rookie next season. Will it be enough to win a Calder? I guess we'll see. But again, leave your response in the comments in an answer to today's question of the day. Which rookie do you think is going to have the biggest impact in 2024-2025? And best comment will lead off tomorrow's show here on Locked On Wilds. A couple of other things coinciding with Locked On Wild 2.0. If you have any topics you'd like to have covered on an episode of Locked On Wild, just email them to lockedonwild@gmail.com, and I will add them to the list of topics we have coming up. We had a great one we had a great idea thrown in that'll probably be a big part of what we do in the off season from Xander. So really appreciate Xander giving us a great idea to fill some of the off season time. And if you've got anything else along those lines, make sure to let us know. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode so you don't miss out on any new Locked On Wild content throughout the next couple of weeks leading up to the draft, then free agency and beyond. And make sure to follow us on your favorite audio platforms as well. You can find new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.